Even though the moderator of any debate is supposed to be neutral, the moderator of the English debate and Jagmeet Singh did their very best to try and throw off Pierre Poilievre and protect Mark Carney from Pierre Poilievre and to some extent Yves-François Blanchet. However, they made a big mistake at the end of the debate. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Throughout the entire debate, Jagmeet Singh would interrupt Pierre Poilievre at every turn. He didn't interrupt Mark Carney. He didn't interrupt Yves-François Blanchet, but he absolutely 100% interrupted Pierre Poilievre every single time Pierre Poilievre tried to talk, which I interpret that Jagmeet Singh, A, is really angry that Pierre Poilievre is so much more popular than he is, and B, that he's absolutely still working for the Liberal Party and trying to do his level best to throw Pierre Poilievre off to make Mark Carney look better. And the moderator was in on it. He didn't stop Jagmeet Singh at all. He didn't discipline him at all. He just said, let's try to let him finish once, maybe twice. And Jagmeet Singh was doing this constantly. Every time that Pierre Poilievre opened his mouth, he'd get one or two words, and then Jagmeet Singh would interrupt and talk over him and yell over him. Like, just the lack of Canadian in that behavior, the lack of, what is supposed to be, let's everybody play by the same rules to see who's actually better. It was pretty obvious that Jagmeet Singh doesn't really understand what it means to be a Canadian. It was pretty obvious that Jagmeet Singh doesn't even understand what it means to be a leader. And I didn't like it. However, there was a time at the end of the debate, they said, we've got a new wrinkle this time. We're going to let 3 minutes for each person to ask a question of whoever they want. Jagmeet Singh asked Mark Carney, what his favorite flower was. Yves-François Blanchet asked Mark Carney a question, and Pierre Poilievre asked Mark Carney a question. It didn't go that well for Mark. Well, it went terribly for Mark Carney.
And empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place.
This is really good.
Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying you were his economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that advice.
It's on the Liberal Party website.
I'm sorry.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? Because it says today you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
The way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central bank governor. And in both cases, if I may, in both cases when I was responsible for inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here?
What is at stake here? What is at stake Trudeau that gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation? Because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And that's time.
Oh man, did he ever kick the crap? I wanted all of you to watch that because obviously Mark Carney was the economic advisor. Justin Trudeau can add, he admits it from the pulpit. He's like, I'm not good at math. Don't ask me about math. So you want me to believe that what he was drafting the budgets? Or do you want me to believe the journalism major, Chrystia Freeland, the girl whose child you're the godfather of, was drafting the budgets? No, it's a safe assumption that Mark Carney was drafting the budget because Mark Carney needs that kind of control. Which, of course, is why he wouldn't flat out say anything other than try to deflect, try to change the subject, try to move it over to how he was the banker. Well, he was the banker in England right now, and they're basically ready to, they call him the reverse Midas touch in England. He destroyed their economy. The green net zero stuff that they put into England is now coming home to roost. It's destroyed the country. Mark Carney can't even get a public appearance in England with the prime minister or with the king because he's that toxic to the population. And his economic policies were not the one that changed it. He's taking credit for someone who can't defend himself because the guy that he's saying, well, the guy that we know did it, Flaherty, has passed. Mark Carney's just hoping that you're not wise enough to look up a history book just to look at it, right? Just to see what it was. It wasn't until the Liberal policies come in the net zero that the dollar began to plunge. And as of time of recording, it's only worth 67 cents versus the American dollar. Remember that when they try to fool you into thinking that Trump has done something to the dollar is stronger than it's been in 40 years. Speaking of Trump, I would point out that Mark Carney, without the protection of the press and without all of the rest of it, cannot debate to save his life. A guy like Trump, who's loud with that New York attitude, he will march all up and down. Carney will be carrying his umbrella, and that's all Carney will be doing. He doesn't have what it takes to be a politician. He's a corporate raider. He takes money and he puts it against other money. I get it. But the two don't translate. Because you are a corporate raider doesn't make you good at the economy, and it doesn't make you good at business, and it doesn't make you good at being a politician. Not to mention the fact that you need to be a leader in this country. What will they do when Trump is no longer the problem? They will drum up yet another boogeyman. That's all the liberals have. If it wasn't a virus, then it was people who wouldn't get the vaccination against the virus. And if it wasn't that, then it was people opening churches. There's always some villain. That's the tactic that they utilize to try and get you to forget that they're destroying your life. Like right now, all he says is Trump, Trump, Trump. But really, his economic policies have put out all the inflation, destroyed the cost of housing, destroyed the dollar, made food prices through the roof, put gas prices through the roof, essentially destroyed your standard of living. And he wants you to believe that somehow that's all Trump's fault. But it was that way long before Trump even announced that he was running to be leader of the Republican Party. Never mind that they selected him and put him in charge of the country. You have to be wise with your vote, and you have to see what it is that you're looking at. And here's a man that can't even handle a debate on stage with other people, never mind what he's going to do against Donald Trump, one of the loudest and most bombastic American politicians ever. You'll remember that I said they were giving every politician one question to 3 minutes, all the leaders on the stage. So last was Mark Carney, and he elected to ask a question of Pierre Poilievre. And I know you might not believe that it could have gotten worse than than the previous answer, but this was the the very next answer, and I am telling you, it went from bad to worse for Mark Carney.
I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Poilievre. Why not? We're in a dangerous and divided world. We talked earlier about the challenges in the Middle East, the threats from Iran, threats from Russia, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We have the threats from China, which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships. We have all this. And in the context of that, everyone on this stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions at. And Mr. Poilievre, it is now 950 days, if my numbers are right, since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely withoof fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is, you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, and I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues. So one can address it. I will observe, as someone with a top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference. And
gentlemen, that is time.
We'll leave it at
that. Talk about blowing up in your face. What I believe is that they planned this, right? They sat around all night and they said, what if we could just ask Pierre Poilievre one question about his security clearance? And they let Mark Carney have that one question so that it would, in their mind, have the most oomph. I don't believe that they understood that Pierre Poilievre's been a politician for 20 years and that he can debate really well, and that he's had a security clearance a long time. Like, I think there's major holes in their research. Like, I think they just see what one or two quick posts on the X platform, and then they run with it like a puppy with a new slipper. Without ever doing the research, they will always end up looking foolish. Of course, which is what just what you saw happen, that Mark Carney thought he had an I gotcha moment, and Pierre Poilievre, not only did Pierre Poilievre handle it with poise and grace without having to, get walked over or flip and flop, he simply told him the facts. Then he told him that if he hadn't had it, the Liberal Party would have been able to gag him and silence him for the last number of years. To which Mark Carney ignored that and then tried to talk about how there are other countries that are an influence. But you're in deep with the Chinese, Mark Carney, so I don't know why you would change it over to talking about how other countries might also have you in deep. Like Saudi Arabia, where your pipeline is, like Brazil, where you have your pipeline, like the United States, where you have the headquarters of your company, as well as the largest pipeline in the United States. So you can't tell me that a company like Brookfield, owning the largest pipeline in the United States and the largest pipeline in Canada, is not in conflict with the best needs of the Canadian people, or by owning that pipeline in the United States of America, that Donald Trump doesn't have them by the short and curlies, because it's a strategic resource, meaning that at any time the president of the country can claim it for the national defense. So you can't tell me that Mark Carney's not compromised. He absolutely is compromised, no matter which way you look at it. I mean, it's not just one compromise. It's like 10 compromises. And when Yves-François Blanchet demanded that Mark Carney, before the election, release his conflicts of interest with the financial, Mark Carney refused. He's not going to do that. So the fact that one thing I know about the far left, if they had it, they would let it go. But the fact that they don't have it is the reason that he's refusing to release it. Now, I'll do that question in another video. I just wanted to show you this one where it was just Pierre and Carney head to head. This was these two guys asking one question of each other and having the time to debate. You heard the moderator say, oh, well, let's let him answer, because Pierre Poilievre is that much stronger than Mark Carney. Mark Carney can't get in there because Mark Carney is not used to this kind of stuff. He's used to people having to wait their turn because he's the CEO or he's the vice chairman or whatever it happens to be. But in a one-on-one situation among equals, Mark Carney is not strong enough to carry the conversation, which means that he will never be able to carry the conversation against someone like Donald Trump or the chairman of China or the leader of Iran. Some of these tough guys, right? What do you think? You figure Putin's going to just let him, what? What do you figure is going to happen when Mark Carney comes up against these world leaders? He burned all his bridges in Europe, so all he's got left is China. Now he's trying to pick a fight with Trump because somehow he thinks that our economy can overcome the might of the American economy. despite the fact that the whole world is investing in the United States because they're not stupid and they realize that it's the American economy that is driving the planet. Everybody knows it except for Mark Carney doesn't want to admit it. And then they try to give, and I got your moment on Pierre Poilievre over this ridiculous security clearance. The security clearance that Pierre Poilievre has already had, and anybody who did a little research would have known that. He's already had it. He is surrounded by people that could have it if they wanted to. Many of the people in the party have it. And if there was a problem, the RCMP has already stated that they could tell him something if they needed to. So all it would do is harm his ability to be a better leader. All it would do is harm his ability to get to the truth for the Canadian people. If for no other reason, you should understand one thing. If your enemy wants you to have it, how can that be good for you? All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.